Today I thought I'd go over some of the weed eater motors that I've modified for RC applications, primarily RC boats that I've built. Now this motor here was a weed eater motor that I started modifying for an airplane engine, and I never finished it. Not even too sure if I will. This is one of my very first motors that I modified. This is a Husqvarna motor, and I had taken the cylinder off and I cut the fins off in a lathe, and I made this water cooling cap for it. That way it was a water cooled motor. And I also took and machined the cooling fins off the flywheel, and also machined this here Delrin pulley for an electric starter, and then this here piece for the 1/4" square drive flick shaft to put in a boat. This motor, I don't know if it doesn't have much compression for some reason. It's probably just plain old wore out messing with it over the years. Now this motor here, this is an Echo weed eater motor. It's a GT200R. It's a 21.2 cc motor, and I've built it for a boat. I run it in a boat, and it did okay. I think I just need to get my tuning on it a little better. As you can see, the motor mounts here for it in the boat. And the things I've done to this motor is I went in and I changed the intake and exhaust ports on it. Just changing them ports changes the timing of the motor, and it makes it able to turn in higher RPM, if not have a little more power. It's got a pipe here. It's got this expansion chamber on it. I highly doubt that expansion chamber does it any good. It probably, I don't know, it possibly hurt the motor more than anything, but it kind of looked cool on the boat, so I went with it. This is not the original carburetor. This is one that I got and just stuck on it, and it seems to run pretty good with that carburetor. And right now I've just got it set up with a little gas tank, a little fuel filter on it, and fire this thing up and see how it runs. Alright, let's give it a crank and see what happens. If you're wondering what these wires are, this is a little kill button for shutting it down. So let's see if it'll fire up. It's not clamped down or nothing, so I'm just going to hang on to it. And let's give it a crank, see what happens. Alright. Well, that's kind of impressive. It fired up first crank. If I was to put this motor back in the boat that I built for it, which is large, oh gosh, I think it's about 4 foot long, the boat that I built. It's a V-bottom boat. I'm tempted to get a different carburetor for it. This one here is just one I had laying around the garage, so I used it. Kind of the way the throttle here is, I'm not too sure how I'd hook a throttle cable up to it. There's some other carburetors that are similar, but they have a actual connection for using a throttle cable. So I'm thinking about getting one of them for it and see what happens. Really, the worst thing about modifying weed eater motors is figuring out how to mount them. They have an aluminum plate here, and then this is way back when I first built the boat. I don't know if I'd redo it or not. It's pretty strong that I built, but this here mount uses 2 holes that's originally in the nose of the weed eater. This one has the centrifugal clutch in it, so that was kind of nice to have in a boat. Now going back to this motor, another thing I had to do with it is I made this here, it's a double thickness aluminum plate to mount the coil, and that worked well also when I had this motor running. It worked really well. I was really careful to get this coil right back in its original position when I got rid of the great big plate that was on the front of this motor. And then I also made this back plate to seal off the back of the motor also, because if I remember right, it had a big plastic piece on it. So I did all that. That way I could use this for mounting and whatnot, the motor. But this motor used to run. I think it's just the compression shot on it now, so it won't run at all. This motor here was actually a pretty good motor in the boat that I built. It wasn't no powerhouse. It wasn't extremely fast or anything like that, but it was a cool little learning experience. And I tell you what, let's just get that boat out that I built it in, and I'll set this motor into it, and I'll show you what I was doing. All right, and here's the old boat that I built. It's all made out of 1/4-inch plywood, and actually the skin off of an old door that I tore apart for the side pieces and the bottoms. As you can tell, it was never really finished. It needs paint job on it, finished and cleaned up and everything. Had a radio box the electronics went into, and then I had a little gas tank off of a weed eater that slid up in the front there, and the kill switch here mounted up back here like so. And here's the rudder. I put these trim tabs on it. It runs a flex cable drive. It's actually the actual flex cable out of the weed eater that I had to solder this drive shaft part onto it and make all that. I don't have a prop on it. Them are really expensive, and so I've got props for it put away. I have like 2 or 3 different props for the thing. But this old boat, it's 4 foot long. If you want to look up the plans for this boat, actually just Google 48-inch Wild Thing, and you'll find all the plans for this boat. And here in a moment, I'm going to show you this boat's little brother that is, I'm working on another video for. I'm making the little brother to this boat, and it'll be electric powered. But I built this boat, oh gosh, I have no idea, 8 years ago or something like that. It got run on the water a handful of times. I had some issues with getting water in the carburetor. That was my biggest problem. But yeah, maybe I need to get this thing put back together and get it finished and get it out on the lake and run it. Just see what I can do with it. And here it is. This is the 24-inch little Wild Thing boat. The construction is exactly the same. It's just scaled down half the size. Instead of 48 inches, it's 24 inches long. This one here, I'm going to power it with a little brushless motor. I'm not too sure what to use. I have this airplane motor, which is an 1800 kV. That one would run pretty good on a 3-cell or something like that. Then I have this larger motor. It's a 750 kV. Or possibly, I'm thinking about just getting a 1/10 scale motor and speed controller for like the RC trucks and cars that could even possibly be made into water cooled. So I'm not too sure. I'm still, as you can see, I'm still in process of building this hull. And this one is built out of all plywood, not plywood, but balsa wood. So it's going to get all nice and sealed and painted and everything really nice. And for being balsa, it's, when I get done with it, it'd actually be really strong for this small of a boat. So I'm working on it and trying to make a video for it also, so kind of keep an eye on that in the future, and we'll see what happens with this. Well, to wrap this video up, as you can see, this is some of the motors over the years that I've modified for pretty much this purpose right here. This just kind of ended up being the end result for now. you never know, maybe I'll come across another motor and I'll do a full-on how to modify something like that. I think that'd be a pretty neat little video. So until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.